All right, welcome everyone. My name is Cheryl Matthew, and this is a talk I host every Tuesday at noon Pacific time. The topic is navigating aging. Well, the series is called Navigating Aging, and each week we talk about a different topic. And today's topic is storytelling and how storytelling can lead to healthy aging. And by aging, I mean everyone is aging every day. So it leads to a good life. Let's put it that way. So we'll start off calling in the light just as a way to bring ourselves together and present, and God's loving, that's always present here. So we'll call in the light and then chant 3 Anai Hughes. And Anai is a invocation of compassion and empathy, and Hugh is an ancient name for God. Would someone like to call us forward into the light this morning or today, this afternoon? Great. Peggy, please.
So, beloved Father, Mother, God, we stand in your radiant light, blessed by your love, and we ask that we open more fully to that light, to that love that you extend to us. And we ask that that light also go around the planet, touching each soul in a way that they will recognize the light and recognize your loving for them. And as always, we're so very grateful to be of service to you. We are grateful for this weekly talk. And we ask always just to be a extension of your loving here in the world. So it is. Anai.
Thank you. All right, so welcome to Navigating Aging. And it's April 30th today, 2024. And so the topic today is storytelling. And so to talk a little bit about it, and then I would love to hear your experiences, comments, questions, and then we'll also open it up to questions. It could be about storytelling, it could be about different aspects of aging. So just to give you a background, maybe some of you don't know, but I've been a geriatric care manager for over 20 years, which means I have assisted families with their aging loved ones. And usually I get a call when mom or dad go from everything's fine to they're not fine till they're transitioned. So that whole place in there that things happen and interesting things happen that maybe you don't know about until it comes about, until it's there. And you're like, oh, I've got to deal with this. So I'm happy to answer what I know and give you referrals for things I don't know. And so it's fun to do this together in community. And I find that a lot of the things that I've learned over time, so as being a hospice social worker, hospital discharge planner, worked in memory care, and also in people's homes as far as keeping them at home or moving them to assisted living. I find that I learned so much from older people, and in that time of like things are different now and they have maybe a new perspective. that it really helps me. And John Roger used to say, do you want the information or do you want the experience? Like, do you want to hear about the lesson so you don't have to do it? Or would you like to just go ahead and do the hard thing or get the hard lesson? So it's a way, like when I hear people's stories or walk them through this journey, I'm listening and trying to learn uh, what I can to make my life better. And so I think storytelling is a piece of that, or an aspect of that. That so what I'll say about storytelling is there's more and more research out there about the benefits of storytelling as we age. Um, for example, it can improve cognitive recall, improve memory. It can strengthen identity as far as how we feel about ourselves, our value, the meaning in life, and it can help in social connectivity. So when we're sharing our story with someone, um, the social connections, especially as we age, are very important, and it's shown to have positive health effects and emotional, psychological effects as well. So one aspect that we actually talked a little bit about last week here is it's not only storytelling in the, I'm going to tell you this story about when I was younger. I moved to New York when nobody was moving to New York, and I was the first woman to do blah blah blah, or I met my goals, my sales goals, and blah blah blah, or I had this child that went on to do. So there's those kind of stories. But there's also the story we tell ourselves on a daily basis, and some of those stories are old stories, and some of them may or may not be working for us as far as creating an openness, a quality of life that we look at expansion. Um, so one example would be, I always held this uh, memory or told the story. Like a lot of times people have about 10 stories from when they were younger that they'll repeat. Like if they meet someone new or if they're spending time with a group of people, it's usually about 10 stories that we'll draw from. And then you can be aware, like what story do I tell? And is it positive? Am I the hero in that story? Or am I the victim? Does that story that I keep telling keep the restriction, keep the judgment, keep the hurt, the wound from long ago? Or is the story, open? Is it, I've forgiven this? I've, I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for a new identity. Because oftentimes the stories that we hold and that we keep retelling in a certain way will hold us to things that we actually don't really want in our life anymore. Maybe it's a pain that we're like, I deserve that. Or, I'm truly not lovable because I remember when my mom and dad just really didn't love me back then. So as we work with our stories that we tell ourselves and others, we can choose to change our story. We can add to our story, to change our quality of life, to change our experience. So I just want to offer that storytelling is a powerful tool, and also not only telling our story, but listening to our story, listening to our story, but also listening to other people's stories. And sometimes it's ministering or just being a witness to someone else tell their story can be healing to them. And then in the same way, it might touch something in us that heals something in us. So I would love, if someone has an experience that they want to talk about. I think of Nancy and as I'm talking about, like listening to stories and witnessing to people, Nancy's got a beautiful ministry of listening to people's story. And I'm also curious about storytelling, but of your own storytelling. But if anybody wants to share their experience with that or anything else, we're just going to have some community time. You want to share, you can raise your hand. Nancy.
Yeah, I could add another sentence or two to the good things you're saying, Cheryl, because through my experience in life, and also I have a good friend in Minneapolis, who Rachel Freed, who conducts basically storytelling sessions for people and has a whole network of people in a way around the world. And part of the thing that keeps it interesting for me is, as I think back in history and the little that I know about women's history in the world, it appears that women haven't been listened to. So that we've all had stories, we've all had things we wanted to share with others. But if there's nobody to listen, who do we tell? And it's really helpful if we can assist somebody who's got stories and anecdotes and liveliness, if we can just listen to them and maybe hear their story for the 9th time. Each time it hopefully is with our intention. It is releasing something, hopefully, so that that piece of karma by the time of transition is finished. So that's one contribution I have. I'm thinking of my friend Anne, who I live in a assisted living place and have for the last 2.5 years. Cheryl, can you imagine? It's been 2.5 years.
I know, it's amazing.
Right after I moved here, I met this wonderful woman, Anne, in the dining room. And you may have heard me tell this story before, but she and another woman were kind of slumped over the table as if kind of we've eaten now and we're waiting for somebody to take us back to our room or something. That was the kind of energetic. And I was in a wheelchair at the time, and as they rolled me past her, I leaned over and asked her, "Are you telling secrets?" And she looked up and looked at me, and I could just see the humor and the intelligence and all of that come forward in her eyes. And she laughed, and we were friends until she passed away. She was a wonderful person. So that's one kind of story uh, um, that we each could have, I imagine, depending upon who we're listening to. So I'll give it over to somebody else with the story.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Nancy. I've seen you have quite a ministry there at your assisted living of listening to people and listening to their story until
It's a privilege, you know.
Yeah. Yes, Peggy.
Were you going to say something? Go ahead, because then I just
No,
have.
I can wait. Thank you.
Well, it's interesting because I just had an experience a couple of days ago. I have a friend that's dealing with memory issues, that has progressed. And I was with them. We were doing something else, and then we went to look at a picture of flowers on their phone. And so as we're scrolling through looking for these flowers, we also came across a lot of, older pictures from, 30 and 40 years ago. And he started telling me about, each of those pictures and the story that went with those pictures. And we must have sat there for at least an hour. And it was like the memory of this person was totally present with the story they were telling me. It was like they remembered everything. And it was so beautiful to witness the connection that they had with those memories and those pictures. And I thought, wow, this is priceless, just witnessing, similar to Nancy, what you were saying, witnessing someone's reviewing their own stories. So that was my experience.
That's, yeah, you helped me remember a story. I was going to say that part of storytelling is a way to be able to build resilience. That's what research says, that storytelling can build resilience, and then resilience can lead to happiness, more happiness as we age. And so that's why, like, what story are we telling? So I worked in this memory care community, people assisted living in the memory care community. And I would find out when people moved in, I would find out from their families different stories about them that were kind of like pieces of who they were, because people with dementia often won't remember. They won't be good conversation starters, but if you start a conversation, sometimes that could tap into an old memory. And I had this one resident. He used to be a helicopter pilot, and there was the story that the daughter, when he first moved in, the story was that there was one time that he actually flew the helicopter upside down, but he got in big trouble because he wasn't supposed to do it. So when I would talk with him, or especially when I would introduce this gentleman to someone else, like it could have been someone else in the with dementia, or maybe a family member, I'm like, hey, this is Jerry, and then I would always try to bring something up that they would remember. So with Jerry, I'd be introducing him, and I'm like, this is Jerry. He used to fly helicopters, and one time he flew a helicopter upside down. And when I would say that, he would just light up and come present, and he'd get this like grin, like, I remember that. That was awesome. And it was like one of the few times that he would actually get so animated and present. Because other than that, he was just kind of walking around, he was not happy or sad. He would just kind of was neutral. But that particular memory really lit him up. So, and I noticed that some people, if we talk with memory care, that some people had stories that they would remember, or like a paranoia that they would remember, or like an againstness about something, that it could really put them in a really bad mood, or really struggling with the caregivers. So when we would work with them to like help them remember something, something happy. Usually for people with dementia, they have a long-term memory, but their short-term memory is not very good. So a long-term memory that they really like. And it is interesting, like emotionally charged memories usually stick with us more. And as we age with dementia, the long-term memories stick with us. So then what are those long-term memories that we have stories about? And I find that the meaning we place on the story is so important, because the same story could happen to a couple different people, but those people could put a different meaning on it. So sometimes if we just change the meaning, recently I had this old memory of my dad wasn't really very expressive with his caring or loving towards me or my brothers and sisters. He just wasn't like, he would build a deck on the house, and that was his way of showing like, I love my family. But he couldn't say like, I love you, or like he rarely called me, or like did certain things that I would go, oh, that points to, what I would put the meaning on loving. But I remember one thing when I first started driving long distance. I traveled across the country when I was like 20. And one time he gave me a flashlight, a big flashlight, heavy duty flashlight. And like it had like on one side, it kind of have like a blinker that like if you were stuck or something, you could use it on your car or something. And I always thought that was really interesting, because he didn't really, I don't remember anything else, any other gift that he specifically gave me, but he gave me this flashlight. And I've kind of held it in my story of my dad doesn't really get me. The only thing he's ever gotten me was this flashlight. Um, and the other day it just like hit me, like if I put a different meaning on it. So I heard someone say something about the light and the something like that. And I'm like, oh, what if I change my story to my dad, like there was part of him that maybe he couldn't verbalize it. But as I was started to drive and travel more, and it also helps, like my daughter just got her license and she's driving more. And I'm like, okay, I need to hold the light for her when she's driving. So maybe this flashlight, which seemed like a random gift, was a way of him saying like, I'm holding the light for you, or here's the light going ahead of you, or something like positive about the light and this gift. So it really, like, just even that one little, I put the meaning on that was a dumb gift, or it was random, or he doesn't know me. I put that meaning on it. So if I change the meaning of this flashlight to like, geez, my dad is you know, holding the light for me. And I still have that flashlight today. I mean, I don't know, 40 years later. So for some reason, that flashlight has gone with me. So that just changing the meaning to that story has really just brought me a peace of mind and encouragement. And it seems kind of random because I was the one that was making all that stuff up. So make up, as Jared would say, like win in our fantasies, right? And I make it up. Yes. And what helped with that piece, I used to think what I remember as a child was what happened. And then I had a child, and Mackenzie would start talking about something that we did. And Karen and I were both there. And Mackenzie's story was different than what Karen and I both remember. And we were there. And we'd be like, oh my gosh, she is really not remembering what actually happened. And then I realized maybe I'm not really remembering exactly what happened. So then I was like, well, maybe I could just remember something different and change my story. And it helps for me to like include like God or loving or light, things like that that are more uplifting into my stories. Anybody else want to share? Hey, Don.
Well, I'm kind of puzzled thinking there's one story in my life that I've remembered often. It's when between the 11th and 12th grade, I set off for the Appalachian Trail. I had trained for 2 years, starting with a period of being weak and dissipated, a heavy drug user, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I trained, I'm getting strong. I've gotten 3 companions to go with me on this thing. Well, it finally peters down to one night we start out up up this little mountain, the highest point in Georgia, and all my companions abandoned me. It was a night. It was like a thunderstorm's coming. So eventually, I'm going up the trail on the side of the mountain all alone in the thunderstorm and the rain, and there's a bear following me. crash. I think so. I think so. It's awful dark. You can only see in flashes, and it's pretty scary. Well, I got to the cabin on top and everything, and had a transcendent experience in the morning when after a long night during which the rodents ate much of my food, etc. It was a heck of an adventure. But the sun comes up bit by bit. I'm completely surrounded in mist in the clouds, and the sun burns through, and I get to see where the vegetation was burned by the lightning, and not too far from where the cabin during the night. What a night! And I'm alive, and it was just transcendent. And I found a cave near the top of it, small cave. Went into the cave and had my first really clear, memorable experience of speaking to those on the other side, some Indians. I have Indian background. I guess this goes on and on. What does the story mean to me? For decades, I didn't remember really my experience talking with the spirits that I met in the cave. I would remember different years. I would remember that, oh, well, this was a peak experience. Heck, I got up there. And then when I told the story to a young friend who's a little bit into magic and such, and she said, "Oh, a bear. Well, that's your spirit. But gave me the whole American Indian picture of how an animal comes into these adventures." And it's just, oh yeah, okay, that's just regular. The bear scared the heck out of me, but much of the strength was just continuing. Anyway, I don't even know what the story means to me lately, other than as I have some memory issues, and some of my thinking ability is not so hot and such. But when I remembered that story, I feel that strength again, and reaching. I will cry. But reaching in my spirit, regardless of what the obstacle is.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful story. Thank you, Don. Reaching your spirit no matter what the obstacle is.
Another mountain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to use storytelling for resilience and happiness, right? Remember, sometimes as we get older and we can't do exactly what we used to,
I don't know about mountain climbing now.
Yeah.
But I
might be some other climbing
quite regularly.
Sometimes it's just being able to get on Zoom. That's the mountain, right?
Yes.
And you're here. Ta-da.
Remembering, and oh yeah. Very briefly, I have another. This morning, I can't remember to re-find it. I saw this little piece of the research to study, and basically, they had this program where people would join a deal where every morning they'd get a little, like our Loving Each Day or something, but they get a little text that would be, and then they get assignments, and then they would, like, 1 week or so they would feature forgiveness and this and that, little exercises to do. It was like 10 minutes something rather, but it was over maybe an 8-week period of time. And they did some measurements on them in the control group and stuff, and blood pressure went down significantly, quite significantly. And some other stuff, so a whole bunch of other stuff. I titled it something about spiritual. It was like, oh yeah, the spiritual aspects of medicine, very dynamite. So like what you're doing here and the various Zoom things and stuff, it comes to mind as good medicine. And I'll attest to it whenever I remember to actually appear.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always nice to see you, Don. Karen.
Yeah, sorry about my video, but I am here. So my mom turned 80 last week, and we we had a little birthday party in our backyard for her. And I asked everybody in the family if they would bring a story of, some special memory that they had of themselves with my mom. And after I put out this request, then I sat with myself and I realized that for so long, the stories that I was swimming in were all the negative stories and all the reasons I had to be mad at her and all the ways that, she didn't do it the way I wanted her to, and that sort of thing. And so it took some effort, but I really sat with myself, and like other stories started to come forward of just really beautiful moments with her. And I remembered one in particular. It's a very vivid memory, although it's sort of just a snapshot memory. It wasn't like a long, drawn out memory, but I have an older brother, and he went away to sixth grade science camp. And this is the first time I remember having my mom all to myself. And my brother was, I'll just say he was pretty much a big handful. So he took up a lot of energy and space in our family. And so to have my mom all to myself and no distractions, or needs from somebody else was really amazing. And we had one of those old pull out sofas that would roll out into a bed, and so we pulled that out, and I just remember she read to me the Beverly Cleary classic Henry and Ribsy, and she'd read it to me at night, and we'd snuggle up in this pull out bed. And that's really all I remember, except the fact that my brother got really sick at camp and had to come home early. So I was pretty disappointed about, the week that I was going to have her all to myself being cut short. But it was a really sweet memory, and it made me realize that, I could spend more time thinking about the sweet memories instead of all the other things that seem to take up more space in my consciousness. So anyway, it was a sweet day of people sharing, and she said at some point it sort of feels like this is a memorial service, and I was happy that we got to share that with her while she was still alive. And I learned some things from other people in the family that I didn't know, and that was really fun for me too. So that's what I've got on the storytelling front today.
Yeah, and it was about 15 people at your mom's party, and it was a beautiful thing to witness people speaking their joy and hope and like positive qualities into her, about her. I think it seems like people don't share. Maybe our group is a little different in that, but sometimes we don't share with other people how important they are to us. And it makes a difference. When people, it's kind of storytelling about us, like, hey, I really appreciated when you did this, or when you did this, I felt like this. And it can really make a beautiful difference. Mackenzie has been on the swim team at her school, but she really is on the water polo team, but she swims because she's got to. And they just had the finals in their district. And there's this one school that always just comes in last. People don't go there to swim, but they're always, every year, they're just the sweetest girls, and the coaches are so kind. And it's just so sweet that they could just be creamed in the pool as far as times, but they are just so happy. And Mackenzie came home and she's like, I just love their coach. He was like, it was late at night. It was like 9 o'clock. And it was like the last swimmer. And this girl was like doing the 500, which is a lot of laps. And the girl was just last, like she was like laps behind. And so like all the other swimmers were done, and the swimmers finally coming in, and their coach was just like there with her, next to her the whole time, just cheering her on. And Mackenzie came home, and And she's like, that was just awesome. And I just love that coach. And it was just inspiring. And it meant so much to her. So she was telling the story of what she saw. And then Karen's like, oh, we got to reach out to this. It'd be nice to reach out to that coach and let him know what you saw. And so Karen found his email through the district website and sent him an email saying what Mackenzie had said. And he wrote back, and he was just so touched that someone would see him and would reach out and spend the time to see him and like tell this story about him. And he was just like, the words he used in the letter back, you could just tell it was just like, thank you, immeasurably. And like the words, he's just like so grateful. And you could see he was like a humble man, and he was just so happy to do what he does. But that we tell the story of others, like the goodness that we see in them. And it matters. It mattered to me, obviously, that Mackenzie saw the good and shared that story with me, and I could picture it in my mind's eye. And then Karen reached out and told the story to this man and shared her heart, and then he shared back. And so this whole mix of us telling each other stories, it helps, and it matters, and it's nice to be seen, and it's nice to know what we mean to others. It matters in our storytelling. Anybody else?
Yes.
Hi, it's so nice to see you.
It's so good to see you all. So with all these lovely stories, I say, do I have any? Yes, I do. And actually, I told it this morning. So I'm a happy, usually, member of Kaiser Healthcare. So yesterday I went in to have a cancer thing taken off my forearm. And I was sitting out having a little breakfast in the sun at a table after. And I'm all alone at this big table in the sun. And a lady comes over at the end and said, do you mind if I join her? So, oh, no, welcome. So it's a big, long table. And we're sitting there eating silently. And of course, she's on her phone. And I'm looking at some things, and I have a newspaper too. And then towards the end, somehow I might have said, is this your regular place to go? My primary doctor is actually in Santa Monica, which is nice. I said, no, but I came to urgent care. And I said, oh, said, yeah, I didn't have to wait at all. So here's her story. And I said, do you mind telling me what happened? She says, yes, a spider bit me on my lower back or something like that. A spider. She said, yeah, and I had fever. So I really came. Now she works at UCLA Pediatrics. So I wondered how come she didn't go there. And she said, well, no, for some reason. So, and the fact that she went to urgent care yesterday morning and didn't have to wait at all. I said, that was great. And I said, well, that's such a good story that you came and they give you an antibiotic and stuff like that. And then she said, and I don't kill spiders. So I took a glass, you put something over the thing and you take it and you put it out to save its life. So I said, well, actually, I do that too. I do that too. So I had that nice story to tell someone yesterday. And of course, I'm telling it to you too.
Mhm.
Good stories.
That is great. And you found this common connection and our shared humanity.
Yeah. Oh, and we
Oh,
smiled, and I told her what I did and gave her my card and stuff like that. So it was just a very sweet moment that I had after having this thing taken off my arm,
mhm.
and send it the light for good
Yeah.
healing.
Light. And, who knows what the connection with that
That lady, because I have her
appearing random, right, woman? Yes. And
sitting at the
how
table.
sweet that you were
Yeah.
open to that. It's beautiful. Thank you. Andrea, I see you in the chat. Do you want to share with us?
Okay. So I just unmute and start.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I haven't got my visual up here, but that's okay. uh, I'm a person who likes to be anonymous, but sometimes, it gets to be too much. But anyway, I have been dealing with the aftermath of my sister's death, and there's all this mail coming in, and it's stuffing the mailbox, and I'm getting very frustrated. My niece is supposed to be taking the mail out of the mailbox, and she hasn't visited the mailbox for months. It's like, oh my God. So it's just, there are things that happen as a result of death. And I was just feeling very frustrated yesterday with dealing with her. And she said, oh, well, we'll have this commemorative. And, well, I wanted a commemorative, and it got kind of hijacked in terms of what she wanted to do. So, but, that wasn't the main thing. It was just that I just felt like there was this disconnect with her, and that I was trying to make this a memorable occasion, and I was trying to clean toilets because I was seeing black mold in the I was like, oh my gosh. So it, these things come along to push our buttons, and I know this, but I fall into the pit of complaining, too. So I was just trying to reframe what happened yesterday in a positive way, and to acknowledge myself as having, done a few things, and I don't have to do everything. But if I could just, find ways to be a positive influence, and to, I've been complaining about her expectations. Well, I had my expectations. So to kind of work with those, and try to make something nice, have a nice experience, have a nice day, have a nice, and have a nice story with a happy ending. And that's kind of what I'm working with. And I guess you're aware for what happens when someone dies, and all the, you open the cupboard and everything falls out of the cupboard, and it has to be, and it needs to be dealt with. So that's one aspect I wanted to kind of focus on, and working with the chaos and the disorganization that comes with someone's passing, the things that need to be tied up. And so I'm here to try to make this a joyful process and share without having to go into therapy or something like that. So it's very positive that they're having this on this day, so I can partake and enjoy and appreciate and find ways to balance things out for myself. And so I appreciate that. And I guess that's all I have to share. And thank you very much.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for sharing. It sounds like you got some keys already, and that's what we're here for. And I love, what you're saying about reframing it, and just to normalize it a little bit. That it is true that when someone passes away, there can be there's an opportunity for family conflict, but there's also an opportunity for family resolution and connection. And what is normal is that each person in the family, say if there's multiple siblings, for example, they all each bring something different to the table. Some people will come in person to help take care of things. Some people won't. Some people will send money. Some people will just want money. So each person has a different thing. And I find that when people get stuck, resentful, things like that, is when they have an expectation of a family member that is different than what that person is doing. And that person's just doing what they're doing. and it's not necessarily personal about someone else. Uh, and if we can work with the expectations of ourselves and others, and sometimes it's letting ourselves off the hook too. Like a good daughter, like we all have our rules, right? A good daughter does blank, a good son does blank, a good brother does something. So it's a good time to just look at our own rules about that, and yeah, and reframe it and trust that people are doing the best they can. And the freedom you give someone else, take that to yourself. Like if you're going to go, okay, well, you can do, I don't know, whatever they're doing, that in this process of when someone's passing, allow them that, and then also take care of yourself in the process. So I hope you hear more things that help you in dealing with the situation. It sounds like reframing is a good key. Carol, you've got your hand up. Hi. From Mexico.
Yeah, here I am. Again, I'm so happy to be here. And this brings up a lot for me because I'm getting ready to go to see my daughter on tomorrow. And then after that, I'll be coming back. My husband's having cataract surgery. And then I'm leaving immediately for my brother who's 88. And so, of course, he's almost another generation from me, and he has dementia. But it's amazing how much he remembers if I coach him. So I'll be contrasting my grandkids that are 4, 8, 4, 7, and 11, and wanting to know, with them, I need to listen to their stories. And then if they ask me about stories, then I need to remember to listen and ask them questions that will lead to good stories from them. And maybe they'll be interested in my stories. I don't know. But my brother has been really interesting because he was a fractious member of the family. And he's so much easier now to deal with now that he has dementia. But he remembers so much. But if I ask him, and it's given me a whole new understanding of what the family dynamic, because I'm 11 years younger than he is. And so I didn't have any idea about a lot of the family dynamics. So asking him questions has been really eye-opening. So it's been very positive for me. And I've always enjoyed asking older people their stories. But now I'm starting to think about, I've had a wonderful life. I'm in a very interesting life, living all over the place. I mean, many places in the world and lots of experiences. And so I don't know, my kids don't seem to be interested in my stories, but I'm interested in leaving them in case they are interested, because I happen to be a hoarder. And that's kind of a family trait in my we have a lot of stuff, and the stuff is meaningful. So I can point to that painting or that picture, and it reminds me of the time I lived in Latin America. And this reminds me of the boyfriend that I dated and blah, blah, blah. And there's a picture that actually it used to hang in my mother's house. And some of you might know Alma Clary. She's an early minister in MSIA. And she didn't know the whole story, but she did happen to meet and know the painter. But there was more to that story. And so it's a fabulous story. So all of these paintings and things that I have in my house, they mean a lot to me because they all represent something in my life. And I try to have them represent something that I've learned from them. Just recently, my husband threw out something that was really meaningful to me from a woman that had tremendous mental problems. And I had followed her from one assisted living to one care center to another. And I learned so much from her. And every time I would sit on that Shea Lounge, even though it was old and my husband thought it was not very good, it really just brought back all of those lessons I learned from this woman. So my hoarding, I think, is connected to that. And in I'm just hoping I'm going to live long enough. I've started the practice. There's a book that for writers, and I'm not crazy about writing, but it's called It's Never Too Late to Begin Again. And it has a component in which it asks some questions to jog your memory of periods in your life from 1 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18. You can divide it up in chunks, and you just answer the questions, and it jogs your memory about those things. And so I'm hoping that I can attach to some of those stories to the back of some of those things, because I think they help my memory. They help me remember things that I would not otherwise remember. So I think it's good for my gray cells, for one thing. And then the writing is probably a very good practice. And then finally, I have been so interested when people have come up and they say, "Oh, you're Alma Clary's daughter." I had no experience of my mother in the movement until she had this accident and could not speak. And I am so regretful that I don't know more of her stories. And so whenever anybody comes up and talks to me about her, it's like this whole other world of this person that I didn't know in that way. So it's fascinating for me. So I'm always looking to go to conference, and I think I should just wear a sign that says, "I'm Alma Clary's daughter. Tell me a story about her." Maybe.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And I love that about what has been shared here, because Nancy's, the idea of listening is so important, because we learn so much from listening. And the more we listen, the better our minds are. When we stop listening, I think that's part of, we're initiated, if we're a minister, into light, love, and sound. So it's not just the light that we take in and that we give off, but it's also the sound that we hear and vibrate, co-vibrate, which is part of that whole loving energy. So the idea of listening is really a valuable skill. So I'm really glad that Nancy's shared that. That's all I've got. I didn't come on because I was eating my breakfast. Sorry.
You're welcome to eat breakfast with us.
Well, I was cooking it also, so I was moving around.
You're welcome to cook.
Got up really late.
Just,
and it's true, there's stories too. Yesterday, I bumped my head. I had a freak accident, which really made me think about my getting on with my life, because I fell back, a chair collapsed underneath me, and I hit my head, and so I went to Kaiser yesterday and and so it was interesting. I didn't have to wait at urgent care, which was amazing. I took 4 books with me. That was one thing. The second thing was, then I had to go to Costco to do some shopping. I didn't have to wait in the optometry line. That was another miracle. And then I was wearing a pair of earrings yesterday that they're little cows, and they have little udders. And I think I was stopped 5 different times by people, either at Kaiser or and they all asked me about my earrings. And when I showed them the little udders, we just had a big jovial laugh. And so it seemed they're all little stories. And I kept telling people, "Oh, I better go play the lottery," because I didn't have to wait at Kaiser. I didn't have any trouble getting across the line. Sometimes it can take me an hour. I didn't have to wait there. And then somebody gave me a Coca-Cola to keep me awake so that I could get home by 10:30. So, it was like, what? And I kept thinking, oh my God, this is just, the light is working so hard for me today. These are all, but each one of those ended up being a story, because when I told people, I better go play the lottery, because look, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, and this has happened with each little person. It was amazing. It was an amazing short story day.
it's beautiful. And you were looking for the good and the good stories.
I try.
That's what you paid attention to. So then you could share the good with us. It's funny, we have certain things around the house, and we'd ask, like Mackenzie, our 16-year-old, like, well, do you want this? It reminds us of this. And she's like, why would I want to remember that? Why would I need to know that? And then I'm like, well, like in this, I have one bucket of like stuff from high school or things I was written up in the paper for a long time ago. And I keep going, I need to bring this in because the only reason, why do I have it? I have it, I'm going to show it to Mackenzie. And then when is the best time to show her that? And then I'll show her things and she'll be like, okay, that's fine. And it's like, she doesn't need to keep it. She thinks I'm amazing already. Like, I don't need to like prove something to her. So it's interesting how, why we keep certain things. And Carol, I love the stories that you have about all your things. And that's like I think a new version of hoarding. It's like you're hoarding stories and memories. It's not just stuff. And it's beautiful. It's like you carry those memories and the learnings in your heart wherever you go. And it'll be interesting to see what you pass on to your kids in addition to what you've passed on already. And I love that idea about you going to conference and turn your voice memo on your phone and just say, hey, tell me a story. Love that. Don, you have a book to share. It's never too late. The book she shared, let's see. It's never too late to begin again. Julia Cameron.
Oh,
thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Yeah, I looked it up on Google, and there are used copies available from under $5 to around $10. I'm excited. That's one of the things to write. I'm gonna get it. Thank you very much.
Can I, if we have a group of people that would like to do this together, this would be a fun group. Because it's better with older people that and we could do it on Zoom, and then share some of the stories, go through it, and kind of hold each other accountable for at least a little bit of writing. And it also includes an exercise component, walking or doing something where you go outside or doing something. It's a really interesting book, but it's much better when you do it together with other people. But the stories, I really love that part of it. But it's hard to get a group together that will, that just wants to do it.
I'm game.
Okay, well,
Everybody, yeah.
maybe it'll be Dawn and I.
Okay. Anybody else that want to do this group? Reminds me a little bit of like people doing the artist's way.
It is
together.
the artist's way, but it's just,
Okay.
it's a much better approach to the artist's way because it is for older people who want to be creative, and it does include this component of writing your story, and it breaks down into manageable pieces. Your age divided by 12, and then so whatever your age is, you divide that by 12.
I see, right.
So because it's 12 weeks, so it's got a beginning and it's got an end.
All right, I love that idea.
Something to think about. Maybe it'll jog people's interest.
Sounds good. We'll put that in light and see where that goes. Sounds fun. All right. Well, I love you. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully we'll see you again for more fun.
Thanks,
Bless you.
Cheryl.
All
Thanks,
right.
Cheryl.
Have a wonderful story. Make your story good. Love you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Peggy.